This month's podcasts are sponsored by Aubergine Legal. Do you sometimes worry that your business isn't meeting all its legal compliance requirements and wonder if you're ticking all the legal boxes? Are you losing sleep worrying about a piece of legislation that you may or may not be complying with? Perhaps you need some help with your client contracts or your data protection compliance. Or maybe you're worried that your website doesn't have the right documents or legal notices in the right place. Perhaps you have a brand that you want to protect with a trademark. How about if you could outsource it all and eliminate all of your worries? If so, then get in touch with Aubergine Legal, a friendly commercial legal consultancy offering practical and clear commercial legal advice without the overwhelming legal jargon, taking the worry away and helping you to protect your business and minimise your risks. Aubergine offers a free 30-minute consultation if you have any questions or want to find out if they can help, and you can access this link and book your free 30-minute call via the link in the show notes.
Welcome to the Bring Your Product Ideas to Life podcast. Practical advice and inspiration to help you create and sell your own physical products. Here's your host, Vicky Weinberg.
So today I'm talking to Joe Shortt from Tripclip. Joe's created a travel retail product that helps people have total relaxation as soon as they settle into their seat while travelling. It's designed for phone, tablets, e-readers to look at eye level, hands-free, while on public transport worldwide. So I'd love to introduce you to Joe. So hi Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a million for having me. It's amazing. You're the first person that I've actually spoken to in over a year about Tripclip. So yeah, I'm Joe Shortt. I created Tripclip about, I'm working on it about 2 years, and it was to launch in June of 2020, obviously into an industry that just happened to vanish overnight. I had some listings with airlines and airports, which have all been furloughed for 2021. So yeah.
Thank you. And can we start by explaining to people what Tripclip is? Because obviously I'm really familiar with your products as we've been working together a while, but I'm aware that people listening might not be. So can you just describe what it is, please?
Sure. So Tripclip is a travel retail device for attaching to the seat in front of you while traveling on public transport. I designed it around aircrafts firstly, to solve a problem for myself initially. I was on Ryanair and I asked my wife, I was playing with the yellow backing on the seat, and I asked my wife, did she have a pen with a lid on it? So when I got the lid and the pen, I was catching it behind the yellow backing on the seat. And I just said to her, I just put my thumb and my hand up and I said, like, why can't my phone or my iPod or my iPad go here and then leave the table free for food and drink? And she was like, oh my God, like that's pretty genius. And I said, I worked full time as a chef. I'm a chef 24 years. And I said, can I look into this? Can I hang on to my wages for maybe just this month? So I scribbled down, I called the thing So Catchy. Or Catchy Clip. I was fiddling around with names, and my tag was it's really catching on. So this was like day one, and I was like, so I can hang on to my wages for this month. And she was like, yeah, what kind of money are we talking? So I rang 3D printing companies, and there was one close to me here. So I got a few designs together, and I should put up what the first one looked like. It was it looks nothing like the product today. But there was just something in it, and like what I would say to others is kind of, no matter, keep your idea completely private and safe. But when you do go to meet professionals that do this the whole time, gauge their reaction, because their reaction to this was, wow, oh my God. Whereas, if you're keeping something top secret to yourself, but you're going to meet designers that see products all day, every day, if they're just like, okay, great, here's my invoice, that's what it's going to cost. If they're not engaging with what you're up to, or, they say, oh yeah, I have something like that, well then, really do take that on board, because you'll get into a bottomless pit of of costs. And if you really got an inkling in the beginning that you didn't get a vibe from anyone you were dealing with, well, then it could be just money that could have been better spent on another idea. Just hold back, you know.
Yeah, thank you. So after you had the 3D printing done, where did you take it next? Was it to a company that specialized in product development? Was that your next step?
Yeah, so I got the 3D printed version the May bank holiday 2019. And I'll never forget it because we flew to Palma and it lashed rain and there was gale force winds, and here in Ireland it looked like the Costa del Sol. It was the hottest weekend imaginable. I'm sure the UK was quite similar, but everyone was like, to them too, because we traveled a lot, and they were like, good enough for them. But so I trialed it on the seat in front of me, and it broke within seconds. I was devastated. So I contacted the 3D printing company when I got back. I was like, this isn't good enough. It broke and this, that, and the other. But from it breaking, I was like, this needs to be simplified. There's no need for that. There's this, there's that. So it wasn't until we agreed to do a second print. Now they were saying, this is a V2. You're completely changing what we did for you. And I said, what we did originally was 13 separate pieces and then put together. I was like, I've simplified it into 2. And they were like, oh, we feel it's a V2. And I was like, listen, I can make you do V1 again. It's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money to do it for free than to do this. Just do this. So when they did that, I was like, now we're onto something. And I took it to a company called Box Clever in City West in Dublin. I had known Dominic before from a business partner. He was a very good friend of a business partner of mine a few years ago. And took it to them guys there, and they said, leave it with us for about 2 weeks and we'll get back to you. So I went down with, actually, I brought a tablecloth clip from Home Store and More. So I'm trying to get it into their head what's in my head. So I brought pens and literally a tablecloth clip from Home Store, a few other ideas for how I felt this should go and that should go. And they got back to me 2 weeks later, and I went up for a meeting, went into the boardroom, and they were like, we had a bet in here to see what you're copying. We spent 2 weeks trawling the internet to find what you're copying. And I was like, nothing. I'm copying nothing. This is just in my head. This is my product. And so it still had no name and no nothing. And it just really went from there. Got refined and refined. So yeah, it's been a crazy few years.
So a Box Clever, a company that specialises in developing products, is that what they do?
Yeah, they're industrial designers. Yeah, they do a lot of stuff you wouldn't see. It'd be internal in machines, or stuff. I think stuff for the gaming industry as well. I think all sorts of stuff. They developed the lid for the Lavazza coffee sold on board Ryanair, and I was really close with the guy that invented that. He owned a company called Retailers and Airlines, and I met Dominic just through him coming and going. So kind of didn't really go elsewhere. I just went to Dominic, and one of the guys there 8 years, Martin, and he said, I've worked on some pretty cool projects, but I've never worked on something I actually want. I want this product. And I was like, okay, that's good to know.
That's really good. And so how long did the process take to get from that first, you walked in with your table holder clip and your pens, and how long did it take to get from there to having something, the final product? And also I'd love to know, and obviously you don't need to tell me numbers, but is it expensive?
It can get, originally it wasn't that expensive. I had set, I think I'd set 20 grand aside for the design end of things. And originally it came in cheaper than that. But the very first concept that they showed me, it was kind of, if you remember the flip phones, like a tiny little Remember,
Yes.
phones got so small once upon a time, it looked like a mouse. So it was like that. And then I said, no. The back of it needs to be longer. And then I was putting up shelving out in the shed. It's so unbelievable where the ideas came from, but I was putting up shelving out in the shed. And do you know the boltless shelving that you put up, the kind of key locked system?
Yes.
That you just tap them into place, tap, tap, tap. I got them in Home Store and More. No, sorry, what's the other place called? Home Base. And I was like, oh, maybe if I put a rivet on the back of the plate for the iPad and put a keyhole slot on the product, then an iPad can never come off with turbulence or somebody jumping into the seat in front of you. Really, you know the way somebody can jump into the seat in front of you on board public transport just by them falling into their seat and you get drowned in tea or coffee or whatever. But I just thought, if the product is on securely, well then I don't want people saying, yeah, but you know, my phone and my iPad took a trip down the back of the plane. The product was fine, but because I've seen that on Amazon when I looked up other products, and people were like, do not buy this, absolute piece of junk. You know, my phone or iPad got damaged or broke. So that's where that little design feature came on. So that's where the cost kind of can go when you go back with new design elements. But I suppose when you do get the product over the line, you want it to be the best version it could be. So, you know, you're getting off to a good start there. So
Yeah. And how long did that process take?
I tried to get it. I was really short on time because Ryanair wanted to list it for June the 1st. So they needed physical product. They needed the consignment in the country for February to get it to all their 72 bases to list for the 1st of June. So Boxclever said they never did a project shorter than 6 months. So they really pulled out all the stops with Tripclip. And I think the more I knew what I wanted and how the product should be, feel, and look, we just got it over the line, and they had great contacts for prototyping and stuff like that. Really trusted companies that they've worked with for years upon years, and it just was quite. That end of it was quite seamless, but then nobody knew what was to come in 2020.
Yeah. So was that February 2020 that Ryanair wanted to receive them?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so even before that, so back in 2019, they'd ordered the consignment. So did you have a contact at Ryanair? How did you get that order in the first place? Because that's amazing to not even have the product developed and be able to take that order.
Well, so what we did was in maybe November, I was working with Boxclever since maybe May, June, July, August. Maybe in August, the second concept was pretty amazing. And then we paid maybe 1,600 for a prototyping company in China to do up the prototype to the exact spec. And that came back and we were just like, wow, I can't believe this exists. I can't believe it's in my hand. This is nuts. So got a meeting in Ryanair, and they just thought it was genius. They were just like, it's fantastic. Can it be exclusive to us? And I said, well, the way I've designed it is it has interchangeable, excuse me, clip heads. And the B2 clip is perfect for your seat. And the A clip is perfect for Aer Lingus. And then I have a C clip in there, and it's perfect for a catalog bin on the likes of Eurowings or different types of aircraft. So they're all without infringing on the person in front of you. And then you just simply attach your phone or your iPad, or we got a new detachable laptop here. So if you were a business traveler, you just put your monitor up high, and then you just sit with your laptop on the train or the plane and do your work as you go. So that was it. They just thought it was genius and they'd love to list it, and just did the pricing end of it and they put in an initial order. So the order was for 100,000 units. It was just bonkers.
Wow.
And then all hell broke loose. I knew before Corona. I'm not saying I knew, but I knew there was issues in China, because I had to get back to Ryanair and say, listen, there's something up in China and they're not working at the minute, or we're going to miss the February production line. What is the latest date? So we were working on later dates into early March, but then the cost had gone up my end because we had to fly. We would have to fly the consignment in, but we were still willing to do that to not lose the listing, because the magazines were going to print. Tripclip was in the magazine. The onboard retail is €40, and everything was done. So yeah, I'm not saying I knew about coronavirus before anybody else, but it was just one of them. We knew there was issues with production, and we knew that there was a bug in China that was going to seriously hinder us getting it over the line for them for June. And then we just pulled the plug on it. When we got into the first lockdown, we pulled the plug on everything, and all my other listings went away. They were just like, we'll review it in 2021. And Ryanair said, we'd still like to list it in November, which is a lot easier when coronavirus hit, because the physical magazine became virtual. So it's a lot easier if there's any changes to change it in an instant. Whereas if something goes to print and you have something wrong, it looks ridiculous, or you might have your price wrong, or you might have your descriptions wrong, or so it's a lot easier to change. But people may not look at a virtual magazine as much as they would have looked at the physical magazine that was in front of them. You know, the way we all pick it up. We all have a nosy. And Tripclip, the thing that they love about Tripclip is because it will promote the buy on board that they already do. If the tray table's free, and the kids are happy out and you're happy out, well then you're probably going to buy food and drink, because you're sitting there watching a movie and the iPad's not taking up the whole tray table. So that's why the airlines are crazy about the product. And from a personal point, it does alleviate tech neck and eye level, hands free. And once you have wireless headphones, I mean, you really don't have to do anything. If the person either side of you wishes to get in or get out, you don't have to do anything. There's no wires, there's no messing, and it's just a really cool product.
I mean, as you know, I'm really familiar with it. I think it's really cool. I think it's great. And as soon as I can actually go somewhere, I will be getting one. Let's just hope that's later this year. So did Ryanair take their order in November? Did that happen?
Yeah, they took 10,000. Yeah. So what I was able to do then was, because they were cancelling flights and closing bases, they said, you're more than welcome to sell some of that stock. We're not going to give it back to you because it's not selling. We're not carrying anybody. And I said, okay. So I did a pre-order sale, and I kind of said, okay, what wouldn't leave them with not enough stock? And I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll try and do a pre-order for 2,000 units. So this is whilst I knew they were coming. I reduced the price, kind of like to entice people to buy, even though it wasn't physically here. I knew it was coming, and so that worked really well.
So what were the timings for that, Joe? So you had your order that was going to come beginning of 2020, and then production in China was delayed. So that production did still go ahead, did it? It was just arrived later than expected.
I struggle with the days of the bloody week.
No, I don't know.
I'm like, what year are we in?
But it was last year. So then I remember I did see your pre-sale. Was it over the summer? I'm thinking it was.
Yeah, I'm sure it was over. I'm sure it was over the summer, because we obviously got confirmation that production could go ahead. Yeah, it was over the summer. And I think, September the 13th, product was to land in the UK. And then whatever I had sold in the pre-order, my distributor in the UK, Hotch, was going to literally send me over 2,000 units. So the way it would have worked is it was kind of, I would have owed 2,000 to the Ryanair stock. And then on their next consignment, which hasn't happened yet, but it, strangely enough, it's selling very well on board. It's very strange. So every flight carries 3 in the D cart. So the D cart is the bar where they have the fragrances and wallets and headphones and stuff. So so there's 3 on board every flight. So kind of going forward, the chances of you buying one on board, if it is really popular, is very slim, unless you had bought it through the website or Amazon before you flew, because it's not currently sold anywhere else. So Boots and WH Smith are very interested in the product as well, but they are just sitting on so much stock, they can't make a decision on it. But unlike an airline that only changes their range twice a year and needs to make decisions at the latest in February, like WH Smith could put in an order tomorrow and just say, hey, we'll run with that. The vaccine's on its way and things are picking up. We love the product. And then I would literally just give them a production and shipping timeline. So that's all they would need.
So with WH Smith and Boots and all of the airlines, and I'm going to come back to pre-orders in a minute, but I'm just curious, have you literally just been knocking on doors and saying, I've got a product that you might like? I'd love to know how you're doing it, because getting into retail can be really, really hard, and especially at like the volumes that you're doing and the, these big airlines and these big brands. How are you doing it, Joe?
I don't know. Some days I just don't know. There's been a lot of doors knocked and not answered. So that's like no is, I think sometimes I take on the no as I didn't explain it well enough. Because when they do get it, or you get the right amount of time with somebody to explain what you're trying to sell them, they get it. But the non-response or the no or no thanks, like it's been really different. But Hotch owns a company called New Wave Channel Partners in the UK, and we met I asked to meet him, and he flew over from the UK, and I just said, look, would you sign an NDA? And he was like, yeah, no problem. And I showed him the product, and he was like, right, this is amazing. I'd love to add it to my portfolio. How can we do business? And I said, okay, well, I won't get too much into it, but I was like, right, I have all these orders, but I literally can't afford to produce them. So like that's where I need help initially, and then distribution. And so I think he's got maybe 50 or 60 airlines and retailers that he uses worldwide, that he's been working with for 10 or 12 years with his own product range, headphones and wallets, and he's got some really cool products, and adding Tripclip to it is a bonus for both of us.
Yeah, and that sounds like it really, and I didn't think about the fact, so the production cost, so I guess the way it works is you have to find the money for the production and then you get paid after delivery. So yeah, from a cash flow perspective, that's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, you can't you can't really stroll into the bank and say, I have orders for my product of a couple of 100,000 units, and they're like, okay, so they're not just going to say, oh great, what's the cost price and what's that, and you're like, oh, I could, any chance of 500,000 for 6 months, when you just opened the account a few weeks earlier and it's in the red as it is, like. So that originally I was looking for investors, and that's what they kept saying to me is, how are you going to pay for this to be produced? And I can understand why they didn't invest, because I was like, oh, look, we'll worry about that when the time comes. that's a first world problem. And they were like, no, that is a major problem. Do you know, you've orders for a couple of 100,000 units or something, costs X to produce, and where is that coming from? So if I invest today, where are we getting that money from? And I was like, okay, thanks, but no thanks. And, myself and Hotch kind of, he just worked it into what he was already doing. He's been doing it for 10 years and having to put money up for the stock that you probably get paid for in 3 months' time. So we got there in the end.
Yeah. And with the manufacturing, so did you have to find the manufacturer in China yourself, or was that something you got help with in the productions, in the prototyping stage?
Boxclever had two companies that they worked with for the last 10 or 15 years. And then Hotch had his own company out there that developed and produced his products. So we got quotes off all three. Initially Boxclever's two, and there wasn't 1 cent in it for me after you factor in manufacturing, shipping, distribution, the airline, crew incentives. There was not 1 red cent in it. So we worked with Hotch's company, and it was just another one of them brilliant partnerships,
And how did you manage all of that process virtually? Because when we were talking before we started, you were mentioning sort of how hard it is trying to get your idea across over screens and things in the times that we're in now.
Yeah. Well, when the likes of Boxclever send your tooling pack out to any of these companies, it's kind of like an architect. They don't need to see, that's how they work. They see, millimeters, and the tooling process to them is virtual, CAD systems that they physically look at the product. The prototype helps. You send them the prototype and they have the physical thing. They also get back to you with easier processes for certain things and their own little how they see something might be an issue or not, and then it's all costed out, and it just came together really well. That was the easiest bit, because you do have your CAD files, you do have everything that you're showing to people, that's all they know how to work with. They can see exactly what you're on about then. But the issue that I think you're referring to is I wanted the 3D explainer video done up, and I had met the lady that owns the company, and I brought the prototype, but then we went into a full lockdown, and they sent me some stuff, and there was 2 other ladies working on the 3D explainer video that had never seen the product. And I was saying to them in emails, shouldn't we Zoom? Shouldn't I? No. We have all we need from the questionnaire we sent you. I was like, you've never seen the product. How is this going to work out? So at the end of the first lockdown, I got sent this thing, and I think it took me a few days to calm down. And then I just said, we need a Zoom. I said, like, what in the name of God was sent to me? Like, it's just the way it flowed. The product just appeared on a seat. The phone just appeared on the product. And I was like, how did the product get there? How did the phone get onto it? This thing doesn't exist. We have to get across to people who, what, why, when, and where. This is a joke. And she's like, okay, I'll give you your money back. And I was like, no, you will not. You are the only person that saw this product. I paid you. I didn't pay the girls. I'm sure they worked around the clock on it. I'm not saying there's not a lot of work in what they did. and then she said, okay, I will take this on. And I said, well, obviously, I always thought it was going to be you because you're the only one that sold the product. You own the company. I paid you. You gave a product to two people that never saw the product. So yeah, I was really happy in the end. I doubt she made a penny off me because there was 5 different renditions of a 3D explainer video that's a couple of minutes long. So if you multiply what I originally paid her by 5, but that's just could have been right first time and should have been. So that was I think I have a few more grey hairs than I did in 2019.
I'm sure, yeah. Coming back, and I know we're jumping around a little bit, but there's quite a lot to cover. Coming back to the pre-orders, how did you get all of those pre-orders? What did you do to get your products out there? I'm really curious about this because I know you did really well.
The 3D explainer video, when it was right, really, really, really helped to sell the product. So yeah, family and friends sort of bought it too, and there was a bit of buzz around the product. The deeper we got into the lockdown, I think it could have sold. Like that's why I was capping it, so I didn't eat into stock that kind of wasn't mine. Like if things picked up and I had eaten into 5,000 units, happy days for me, but not if the airline industry goes back, because if you run out of stock and you don't have more stock on the way to replenish that, well, then you're into fines for having something listed that you can't supply. So that's why I did cap it. But I did meet, I do meet friends and a lot of people around the town. If I'm getting diesel for the car or something, and they're like, love your product, like I can't wait to get it. But they're all, because the 3D explainer video is totally focused on the airline industry, because I didn't want to confuse things. I didn't want to say, well, you can put it over the seat in the car for the kids in the back. It's fine around the house for home office and home gym, and it's perfect for a bus and it's perfect for the train. So I kind of focused on the airline industry because that's where it was launching. But with the pandemic, I couldn't pivot the business. I couldn't say to people, oh, it's all singing, all dancing. It works here, there, and everywhere, because it was just that product that was known for doing that thing, and that thing didn't exist.
Yeah. And so was it mainly sort of family and friends and social media that you used to get the product out?
Yeah, I worked with Nonstop Dan, who's a fairly big blogger. I contacted bloggers that I had started to follow, but I started to follow to see, did I like what they did or what they didn't do. And a lot of them I met with their broker or manager or this type of thing, and I just didn't engage at all. Some of them wanted astronomical money for a 30-second video or a shout out, and I was like, can you quantify that? Like, how do I see that back in sales? And they're just like, don't want to know, don't care if you sell none. This is what he is to deal with, and then you pay me. And I was thinking, how much of that does he get, or how does he know what you told me what it was going to be? Like, you tell me it's 10 grand for 30 seconds. Are you telling him this? Are you telling him you got 2? I'm like, who are you? So I just totally disengaged. And then I spoke to Dan, and he was like, oh, you're a startup. I love the product. I'd love to help. There's a few ways of doing this. We can do a swipe up, and I, there's 5 or 6 different ways of doing it. And for every one sold, I get a commission. I was like, oh, that's phenomenal. I can do that. I can definitely do that. So that went quite well. And then, like, being sold out was, I hit the threshold of not getting into, trouble with not being able to replenish the stock.
Yeah. Thank you. It's good. It's just good to hear what you've done. And I actually have to say, and I was saying this before we even started recording, you've just done so much in the last couple of years with this product. I think it's amazing and what you've achieved. And especially given, you don't have a background in product design or retail. You just took this idea and ran with it. And I know you said you've had some challenges. So with that in mind, what or is there anything over the past couple of years that you'd really want anyone else to know if they were going to start doing something similar? I don't mean a similar products, but I mean, an original products idea that they've got that they want to move forward with. What advice would you give to someone, or what have you learned that you'd like them to know?
Like, I'm extremely private, so I mean, it's an idea that I kept close to my chest. And as I said, when you do start meeting with professionals and approaching people, when you feel it's at a stage where you want to investigate it further, but not spending major money, but all money that's not getting spent on the family or the home, it's all major, regardless. So definitely just pick up on the cues and the vibe that you're getting, and if they are wide-eyed and delighted that it's crossed their desk because it's new and exciting and they haven't seen it before, or if it's something that is way 10 times better than something that's out there, they may say, oh, I own such and such a thing and it's absolute rubbish. That does solve this and that, like, I think of the pop socket guy. He came up with that idea because he was a runner and he wanted something to wind his headphones around. So basically, if I think he sold 36,000 units in year one, or $36,000 in year one, and did 200 million in year two, something crazy like this. But I mean, if he launched that when all headphones became wireless, and he was like, no, that's not what it's used for. It's to wrap your, like, if you did 200 million in revenue, you'd be quite happy. You wouldn't give a damn what people are using it for. You'd be like, that's fine. It's just phones got so big that his product was perfect for wedging the phone between their hands. But what I just would say to people is just keep your cards close to your chest. I have a few other designs of products, and there was one before Tripclip, but to get it over the line was, I think it was 100. I think the budget needed to be 100K or something. So I just shelved it. But I did speak to somebody about it, and they were like, straight away, just didn't understand it and went, it's a bit gimmicky, isn't it? So you really don't want anything like that early doors. You just want to keep it close to your chest, spend as little money as humanly possible, and take the advice, good or bad, when it is a physical thing. Because if people don't get a vibe for it and don't feel they want it, then you see it on Dragon's Den the whole time. Like, when they hate something and they're begging somebody, do not spend any more money, and they hear somebody's put remortgaged or something, they're like, there was way earlier than remortgaging that you should have got a vibe that this was not something people want,
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's next for Tripclip? So I know we've just got you onto Amazon, so that's fantastic. Oh, that's okay. And so people can go and buy your products sort of directly, sort of before they travel, as you were mentioning before. So I think that's fantastic. What else? What's next?
So over the weekend, I had to work on 3 separate airline proposals. So with the vaccine on the horizon, they're now thinking of June again for listings. So yeah, I'd like to hear from WH Smith in the next few. I think they said they'd relook at it in March, and that was in December. They said they'd look at it. in February or March. So things aren't great at the minute. So like when I do hear, I'm sure it'll be positive, but I think it may be pushed back again. So what else is happening with Tripclip? I've designed a second Tripclip, which has less features than the Travel Pro, and it's the Travel Buddy. So I've patent pending worldwide with it, and it's just a simpler version. Also helps with somebody looking at the Travel Pro and working around my patents and making a simpler version. So I did it. I just sort of said, right, well, how are people going to work around my product? And so the Pro has a hinge mechanism, and you tighten it and lock it there, and it has a spring system. And then for the more basic Travel Buddy, I took them elements out of it, and I extended the clips rather than it having the sort of hinged neck. So just trying to keep busy, trying to stay positive, and there's a lot of good to come out of 2021 for everyone, I hope, and we get back to doing what we love, which is chilling out and traveling.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's hope we can all get moving again. And by the way, I think it's really smart to have created another version before anyone else decides to do that. I think that's really clever. So one final question, Joe, if that's okay, because I do appreciate your time so far. What would your number one piece of advice be for someone else wanting to create a product?
Go for it. Just go for it. If you feel it's going to benefit a lot of people, and like if I wasn't in love with what I was doing, I think regardless of how much I've spent with the year that's just been, if you weren't loving it, like I fell out of love with chefing in the last few years, because a lot of stuff came into kitchens pre-done and pre-ready. So I was like, no, hang on a minute. We're not even washing the lettuce now. We're not even making a pesto from scratch. And that takes 2 seconds. And we've got teams of guys standing around here drinking coffee or going for smoke breaks. And we could be doing phenomenal food instead of this, this it's basically pre-packaged or pre. So really say to yourself, do I love it? And like, no one saw a pandemic coming, but like there will be obstacles, hopefully nothing that huge again, but I absolutely love the process. I hate being idle. I hate that I'm cooped up, but we all are, and it's for our own good and safety. And but yeah, love it. Keep it close to your chest. Refine it every single day. There's 2 tiny slight modifications since, like, I've played around with it for the last nearly 9 months in lockdown. I have the back of seats here in the house. So yeah, love it. Spend as little as possible, and take the advice, good or bad, when it does materialize, and you are literally, your best customer is usually the closest person to you. If your wife or your family wouldn't dream of buying it, well then have a serious rethink. I don't want to put anybody off. I'm sure people have ideas out there that family and friends hate and don't want, but yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you shared. I really appreciate how much you've told us. So thank you. Hi, thank you so much for listening. As always, I would absolutely love to know what you thought of this episode. Please do remember to rate and review the show, and also, most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And as a reminder, I release a new episode every single Friday. So take care, and look forward to speaking to you again then. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.